But here's the thing that I love to tell everybody: never sells. But every single thing that you do in real estate is all negotiable. There's 6 ways you make money when you buy one property. Number one, cash flow.
You always hear passive income, right? That's a bunch of shit. Well, if you want to be a real estate investor and you want to learn how to grow your portfolio, I've got a surprise for you today. I got Dustin Heiner. Dustin, thank you for coming on the show today.
Joe, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I mean, I love real estate investing. I started back in 2006 and eventually had enough properties to quit my job. And now I just, go to the gym, hang out with my family and come on podcasts and talk to great people like you because I have real estate that makes money for me. So I really appreciate you having me on the show.
I appreciate it. Now, let's give you a little bit of background. You're CEO and founder of Master Passive Income. What exactly is that?
So when I quit my job in 2016, I had so many people asking me how I was making a living without working a job. I call it a just over broke job. And so, but as I was showing people, friends and family members, I realized 2 things. I enjoyed it. Number one, it was a lot of fun showing people and they get their first property and it was just great. But then I had plenty of time. That was the second thing I realized. So I had plenty of time. Fast forward, wrote a couple books, started a podcast. It's literally just a solo show, me teaching how to do it. We're over 2.2 million downloads now, courses, coaching, all that sort of stuff. But basically, how to help people. In fact, my goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. And that's where Master Passive Income was birthed. And now that's where I'm going.
All right. Now let's talk about your, which by the way, congratulations on that. That's a big success. 2.2 million on a podcast. That's huge.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your portfolio. You've got over 30 properties now. It's a mix of multifamily and hotels, correct?
So the 30 plus properties that I own now, in fact, I just bought 3 more just last month. They're all single family homes. And then I also have hotels that I, as a limited partner in. Basically, I've had really good friends that are really good operators, so I invested in there. But then we bought a 355 unit apartment complex in just near Nashville, just south, about 20, 30 minutes of Nashville. Bought that last year. And then this year we're closing, hopefully at the end of the month, on a 375 unit apartment complex in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so for me, it started with residential, just buying property after property. And eventually you just keep playing Monopoly. That's how I did it. And that's what I loved was I had more money now. Now I just got to, trade up into bigger properties.
Yeah. Now the bigger properties, are you syndicating them or how are you doing that?
So yeah, in a sense, when you talk about syndicating, now how I understand the word syndicating or how I think about it is, somebody else they have a deal and you just go and shop around, try to find investors to invest in your deal. I'm not necessarily that because I'm an investor and these are properties that I'm literally buying myself, but I do syndicate it out, meaning hey, if you want to invest with me, you can. In fact, I've had my podcast since 2016 and I get people just listen to me every single episode. And I got so many people asking me, hey, Dustin, like you're investing in your own deals, but we trust, the person telling me, I trust you. I want to invest with you. Whenever you have a deal, let me know. And so you only get so many of those before you realize, man, maybe I'm not helping people like they want to be helped.
Right.
So fast forward, that's when I started, any of my deals that I get that we're bringing on bigger properties, then we bring on investors with us.
Okay. Now, you started off with just one single property, correct?
2006. Yes.
Okay. Now, had anybody in your family ever done real estate before, or is this just a path you decided to go and?
No, no, not at all. Nobody was investing in real estate. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, went to also one of those little, well, when you're working a job, you watch TV and you go to work. And so I was watching TV late at night. There was a late night infomercial came on in 2006. Hey, we're coming to your town, a free 2-hour seminar, teach you how to invest in real estate. So I went there, but it was all hype, all sales pitch. They said it's normally $1 million, but it's $1,000 today. Run to the back for another seminar. Anyways, I got suckered into all this sort of stuff. And then I took what little information, because it's high dollar, low value. Those things back then, they probably still exist, but they just really were taking money. Fast forward now, I bought my first property with what little they taught me, but also what happened was my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months because I did not know what I was doing. Now that, after been doing it for almost 20 years now, I've developed a system because I invested from California was where I was living. I bought my first property in Ohio and in 2006, but then started scaling from there.
So you're buying single family homes across the country?
Yes. So even now, I invest in Ohio, Texas, Arizona, Indiana, and Tennessee. So I love investing out of state, well, just far away from me because I'm a doer. And so if I had somebody say, "Hey, my toilet's clogged," and I live like an hour away, I drive to take care of it. That's just my personality. So
Right.
this makes me not do it myself, but then I buy properties that I don't want to do any work, but I want to make sure all those expenses are paid for. So I account for the expenses of property managers, contractors, all that sort of stuff before I buy the property. One quick last thing I'll say is whenever anybody becomes an investor, sadly, what they hear is I'm an investor, I buy a property and that property is my business. No, I did that and my property manager started stealing from me. What you need to realize is literally the statement. You need to stop being an investor. You need to start being a business owner. And you had that key word, scale, how to scale your business. If you're an investor, you're a mom and pop, you maybe have, let's say, 5, 10 properties, or let's say you have a 12 unit apartment complex, maybe a small multifamily, where you're doing all the work yourself and you can't scale. Eventually you run out of time. Well, what you want to do is stop being an investor, be a business owner, and the business owner gets the right systems, procedures, processes in place, and the experts to do the work for you. And then the property works for you. And that's what I figured out after starting in Ohio and then saying, man, I really should replicate this in other cities and other states. And I just did it over and over again. And then when you build a business, that is what makes you money.
Now, are these all single family homes you're buying in these other states, or are they mixed?
But both. So single family homes and then also the multifamily apartment complexes as well.
Okay, how are you managing those from Nashville and these other states?
The 30 the single family homes or the multifamily.
Both. I mean, if you're
Oh,
buying, I assume that you're buying, if you're buying in Ohio, you're buying close, so the one property management company can manage it all?
so what we do is when I say build a business, because I'm always beating that drum. I'll never stop because when was an investor, my property manager started stealing from me because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Well, what I decided to do was instead, after I realized the wrong way, and then I figured out the right way. And the right way is to building a business and finding the right people in place. And it'd be kind of like this. Let's say you are starting a convenience store, a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines, and all that good stuff. Well, you would not sign a lease on a location and open the doors and set a box of candy bars in on the ground. No, you'd go out of business in 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas, those are shelving units that all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, cash registers, countertops, employees, insurance, business accounts, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Then, once the business is built, then you buy the inventory. So my 355 unit apartment complex we got last year, 375 they're getting this year, the 30 plus properties that I own, that single family home, those are all inventory. That's what I look at as I have a business that runs and has the inventory that makes me money every single month. And that's how you do it right. And that's how you're able to scale. So before you buy a property, you make sure that you have the experts analyze the property, make sure that they can manage it. In fact, when I do single family homes, when I coach students, sadly, some people say, "Hey, Dustin, I bought this property and I did everything that I was supposed to do." The gurus told me, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, thousands of dollars to fix up the property, and then try to find a tenant and then try to find somebody to manage the property. And then I called property managers and they all told me they would not manage it because they'll get shot there. It's like, oh, you no longer have an asset, you have a liability now. How much better would it be? Even apartment complexes, small multifamily, whatever, every single thing. Remember, it all revolves around business. You create a business that you get the right people and you hire slow, fire fast, which means you hire them by interviewing multiple times, like your property manager. Don't just get the first person across the street and say, "Hey, you're a property manager. Come manage my money, my business, my inventory, my everything." No, you would hire slow, find the right people. But then when you're looking at properties, you would not say, "I just bought this house." Instead, you say, "Hey, property manager or contractor or inspector or whoever, a realtor, I'm looking to buy this property. Tell me everything that you know about it." Especially, I invest out of state. I love investing far away from me. So I have to hire experts who know what they're doing as opposed to me thinking I know I'm doing. One quick last thing I'll say, I have a lot of students say, "Hey, Dustin, you invest in this city. You're the expert. Tell me about it." And I said, "No, no, no. I'm not the expert. I might know a little bit because I've learned from the experts, but what you need to do is make sure you build the business and then you find the right experts and they will make sure that you don't buy the bad properties and then you would buy the good properties.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, we had a so we buy properties as well, and we're mostly in Texas right now, but we had a bad manager as well. And I showed up. And I think a lot of it, and this is for somebody that's new especially, we always hear passive income, right? That's a bunch of shit. A lot of people here, so it's passive, yes, in that you're not actually doing the actual labor, but a lot of people take that far too serious and don't pay attention to the money. And I would say almost, I think it's 100% of the property we bought in Texas, or we because it was an out-of-state owner that didn't go check on the property management company. The property management company then took advantage of them, and we had one that we bought 72 unit, Taruco Springs was what it was called. 72 unit. They were California owner, property management in Texas. They were giving a free unit to a maintenance guy, free unit to a 3-bedroom free unit to a single maintenance guy, free unit to, and this is a 72 unit, keep in
I
mind,
was gonna say
free unit
72,
to the
that's not that big.
manager. They were paying a assistant manager and an assistant maintenance guy.
That's a lot of money.
Yep. Yeah, it broke the property. And so when we started looking at it, we're like, what the hell is going on here? And so we started to look at the numbers, and we're sitting with a manager that's there, and she goes, "Are you guys going to keep me?" And I go, "We can't afford to. Your salary is double what they're paying in the area." She goes, "No, it's not. I'm the same as everybody in the area." So we showed her the number, and she goes, "I'm not getting that. Here's my pay stub." Yeah,
What were they doing? They were
keeping the
skimming?
other half. The property
Oh,
management company was keeping the other half. The junior maintenance guy was not even on that property. He was getting paid to be there. He was working another property for that property management company down the street.
wow.
And same with the assistant manager. Weren't even on
Wow.
the property. So, and this guy had never went out and had boots on the ground, so he didn't know. So if you're a new investor, be aware that you need to be very, and maybe that's something that happened with you as well, when you were getting taken
Well,
advantage
let
of.
me give
But
you a little for all your listeners too. I want to give you a quick tip on how I make sure that people are doing the right thing, especially like
yep.
your property manager. And so everybody that touches my property, could be the
Mhm.
large multifamily, single family home, whatever it might be, every single person that touches the property, I ask them to check on the other person's work. Let me give you a quick example. So in Texas, I have a property in Houston that we were replacing the sliding glass door. And I also had a roofer there working at the same time. Well, the sliding glass door, I got it from the company that was all done. And I don't just take it as, hey, it's great, because I'm not there. I was living in California at the time. I now live in Nashville. So I called up my roofer and I said, hey, roofer, would you please go in there and just open the sliding glass door, make sure it works? And, he had access to the property, and make sure it works, make sure it looks good. Just, I don't like, take 30 seconds. Just make sure if there's
Yeah.
anything wrong, you just let me know. And could you snap a quick picture? And so what I do is when I build a business, I find the right people. And I think honestly, everybody listening to your show, more than likely, they're a really good judge of character of other people. You kind of get a sense, oh man, this person's a little off. And I've learned now, after doing business for 20 plus years now, I don't let those little yellow or red flags that pop in my mind. I don't just push them aside. I'm like, no, there's probably a reason why I'm feeling this. Let me move on from that other person. So, but at the same time, I also, things happen. Meaning, let's say somebody was good initially, and then 2 years down the line, something bad happened, get a divorce, whatever it might be. Well,
Sure.
you always need to have some way to verify everything that they're doing. One quick last thing, when I actually build a business, I hire slow and fire fast, like I said. And every single person in the business, I make sure that they are the best person that I would be able to hire. But then I also keep track of who's the second best person. Because let's say this first person just kind of falls off the map. Then I want to make sure I have somebody else that's going to make me money or help me to make money. But one quick last thing I'll say, whether you're buying a large multifamily, small multifamily, or single family home, remember, I said stop being an investor. Back in 2006, when I first started investing, I had everybody telling me you need to buy and maybe make $25, $50 a month in passive income, or just get zero because you're going to get appreciation. You're going to love that. Well, the investors that did that, they went bankrupt. In fact, I was solely investing for cash flow, and I still do that on all my properties. And with that cash flow, what I wanted to do was make sure that I can quit my job. I wanted freedom in my life and I needed cash in order to do that. I couldn't eat appreciation. And so what I decided to do was I started buying properties for cash flow. The great thing about 2008 for me, rents went up. You might be thinking, listener might be thinking, well, how in the world did rents go up? It was a recession. Well, sadly, people lost their homes in foreclosure, but that turns them into tenants. And as they started renting my properties, my rents went up because there was more demand.
Yeah.
And so, what I try to tell everybody that I'm helping to invest in real estate, what I share with them is what you want to do is you build the business and then you make money every single month from every single property you own. Let me give you a quick example and I'll have you jump in. So, let's say you're going to buy a candy bar, give you a little analogy, for 50 cents. You buy a candy bar for 50 cents and you knew all day, every day, you can sell it over and over again or sell many of them for a dollar. Well, you buy it for 50 cents, sell it for a dollar, you make 50 cents all the time. That's what you do in a business. With a real estate investing, you would not lose money every single month. Just like if you could buy a candy bar for $2 and you could only sell it for a dollar, you'd lose a dollar every single time. Why would you do that? You would not do, oh, I just hope that it'll be worth more. But no, no, no. We do not buy that candy bar unless we know we can make money. Same thing with real estate investing. We do not buy that property unless we know we can make money. All my single family homes make me a minimum of $500 a month, could be 600, 800, $1,000 a month from all these 30 plus properties that I own. And then you have that cash flow coming in. But here's one quick last thing. Let's say you didn't have 50 cents to buy that candy bar, but it cost you 25 cents to borrow 50 cents, where you're only out 75 cents and you sell it for a dollar, you still make 25 cents. That's a beautiful thing about real estate investing, multifamily, small and large, and single family homes. I now take a tax-free loan on all my properties. In fact, I got 6 of my single family homes. I'm doing a DSCR loan, a debt service coverage ratio loan, and I'm pulling out like $600,000. My payment's going to be about $3,000 a month. My properties are making 6 grand. These properties, so I'm getting 600 grand in my pocket. I'm still making cash flow, and I'm going to take that 6 grand, put it towards my multifamily or buy more properties. And so that's the beautiful thing about real estate investing. When you look at it as a business that makes you money, then the whole world opens up, and that's how you scale to where you have many, many properties.
Absolutely. Now, do you Airbnb your single family homes, or you do long-term leases?
This is what I love about single family homes. Apartment complexes, you can do a little bit, but not as much. But single family homes, so like 4 units and below, you can definitely do it. Residential. I love that we can do many different things. Long term, I personally love long term. 80% of my portfolio is long term because it's just automatic. I just keep making money, which is great. But I don't buy the property unless I make a minimum of $300, $400, or $500 a month in passive income. That's one. Midterm rental. I have a midterm rental that makes me even more money. So I would long term rent it for like $2,000 a month, but I have a midterm rental. It's 35 or $3,600 a month that I'm charging. So it's 30, 60, 90 days, a little bit longer than short term, but it's fully furnished. So I make more money. But I also can do, and I do have short term, like Airbnb properties. You make more money. There's higher turnover, a lot more wear and tear on the property. So you just count for that. But there's also one other one, Joe, that is really, it's going to take over, I think, really, really soon. It's called co-living. When I heard about this 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, oh, co-living, who would want to do that? No, there are so many people, especially the Gen X, Gen Z, the newest ones. They're realizing, oh, home affordability is, I can't afford a property, but I
Right.
need a place to live. And they're so much more open to the idea of doing co-living, getting a house and then renting out the rooms, and they have a common space, a kitchen, all that sort of stuff. So that's taken off. So for me, for my single family homes or my small, residential 4 units and below, long-term, midterm, short-term, and co-living, those are all fantastic options. And I buy a property knowing which route I'm going to for each property that I buy.
Okay. You're a buy and hold guy, right? You don't sell or flip.
Unless it's my multifamily,
Okay.
which, it's in fact, what we try to do is refinance, pay off our investors and keep the properties. But here's the thing that I love to tell everybody. never sell. As best as you can, never ever sell. I have 5 kids. So all my properties that I own, like especially the single family homes, I'm going to give these properties to my kids. That makes them money. They have a stepped up basis, which means that they don't pay taxes on it like I would if I were to sell it. So that's number one. But number two, when anytime anybody wants to sell, then the reason why is because they want access to the capital to do whatever, the equity. They want to get access to it. But I'm like, well, if you sell it, then you will not have a property that makes you money. It doesn't grow in value because it's gone now. Like you literally are done. But if you want that capital, why not just do a tax free loan on that property? Because then you access that equity. Then you can then buy more real estate. And that's how you scale because you have an asset that makes you money to pay off that equity that you pulled out of that property and makes you more money on top of that.
You went right into the next segment I was going to go into, and that's getting started investing. And I think you hit a good spot right there. Um, I think it's kind of daunting, right? I'm sure the first deal that you bought, you were scared shitless, right? It's kind of hard to pull. I know I was.
Everybody is. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? I got lucky on my first multifamily investment and got a little cocky, and the second one wasn't so good. Um, you know, but I think it's important. How do you recommend in this day and time? I mean, we started a long time ago. How do you start investing right now? What advice do you give to somebody?
Okay, so now everybody understands the idea of monopoly. If you've ever played Monopoly, you understand. You start
Yep.
small, you get house after house after house, eventually work up your way to hotels, multifamily. And so I found the very easiest way. Now, I'll pause that. It is possible to jump right into, let's, 74 unit apartment complex. It is possible. It's not easy though. It's actually really, really difficult because there's a lot more moving parts. You have to raise capital, you have to have experience, all that sort of stuff. If somebody was listening and said, "Hey, Joe, I really want to just get in the game. I've never done anything before." Easiest thing ever is buying a single family home. Everybody, more say everybody, most people have bought a primary residence. You get a realtor and a mortgage broker and you put them together and you buy a property. Super, super simple. When you're investing in a single family home, to get you in the game. In fact, that's how I got to where now I graduated, quote unquote graduated, but I got into these larger apartment complexes and these larger properties is because I started small, just like Monopoly, and kept growing my wealth over and over again. And so when you buy a property, you want to make sure, like I said in the beginning, if you're going to start with a single family home, which I have over thousands of students now that we've coached to get their first property and eventually work their way into multifamily, because that's what we do is play Monopoly on the investor roadmap that we have. And when you buy that first property, you make sure you build the business before you buy it. You have the experts make sure you're making money every single month. You put your passive income or your cash flow as an expense item. Same thing with your mortgage, taxes, insurance. This is all across the board for every type of property, multifamily to single family home. Across the board, you calculate all your expenses and then you make sure you put your income that you want to generate, make every single month. So let's say you buy a single family home and you want to make a minimum of $500 a month. Well, that's $6,000 a year in passive income or cash flow, which is great. 10 properties would be $60,000 a year. 20 properties would be $120,000 a year. That's how I scaled my business. But what you do is you don't buy a property unless that cash flow is an expense item. So you know without a shadow of a doubt it's going to be paid for. Just like my taxes. I don't pay my taxes on any properties. I don't pay my mortgage. I don't pay for my property manager. I don't pay for repairs. I don't have to get a job, is what I mean. I don't have to get a job to pay those things. I don't buy a property unless every single expense is paid for. And so when you're getting started, you're going to buy first property, let's say small multifamily, whatever it might be. Keep these business principles in mind because when you do this, you're then going to be able to scale to buy the next property. In fact, when I started in 2006, all I did was I just kept recycling my money over and over again to buy the next property, then to buy the next property and do it over and over and over again.
Patience. I know when I first bought, I had some money and I just wanted that first deal. And I think patience is something, and I think you're teaching the right thing because really understanding that it is a business and setting it all up before you get started because I didn't. My business partner, I did not. We bought a property and figured it out from there. But, it was a different time and there's so many opportunities to get educated now and there just wasn't then. And so I think there's a lot more opportunity, but
Well,
patience is something
uh,
of finding the right deal.
yeah, and I want to share something. So whenever somebody comes to me for coaching, like I said, it's over been thousands of students now. Whenever they come to me for coaching, I help them to understand that this is not a get rich quick scheme at all. In fact, it's going to take years. It's going to take 3 to 5 years. In fact, my students now, in about 3 to 5 years, they become financially independent because we have this roadmap we try to get on and try to buy property. One of my students specifically, in 4 years, he went from zero, and he's an immigrant from Bahamas, came over as a college student, visa and all that sort of stuff. But he has 29 units now in 4 years. Started coaching with me, and it's just doing phenomenal.
Yeah.
And when you are looking at scaling your business, what you want to make sure is that you are, as you're building the business, you're going to be realizing, I'm now going to figure out my next strategy, my next move, where I'm going to be moving to. And it's a get wealthy plan. It's not a get rich quick scheme.
Mhm.
It's a plan. And at the same time, if you follow this plan and you start buying property after property after property, you don't wait to time the market. It's time in the market. Like the longer you're in the market, the more money you're going to make. So one quick last thing I'll say, because I've coached lots and lots of people, I have 5 kids, and each one of my kids, so my oldest daughter, she's 16 now. She just bought her first rental property, a single family home, is in Akron, Ohio. Obviously, she has me as her dad coaching her through the process and all this stuff, but she took her entire savings, bought her first home. I think it's going to be making about $200, $300 a month in passive income. We just got it rented like two weeks ago. She got an email, oh, your property is rented. So this is a get wealthy plan. And like you said, it's patience. But I mean, imagine working 40 plus years of your life for somebody else and then hope to retire and live on 40% of what you saved that entire time working a job, that just over broke job. But if you did it right, 3 to 5 years, you can become financially independent. And I like the term not retired, but successfully unemployed. I found another way to make money to provide for myself and my family without working for somebody else.
Absolutely. How do you set your company up? Do you do an LLC?
Great question. So I've actually been learning a lot more. So usually I have an LLC. So, the apartment complex, LLC, single family homes, not necessarily one LLC per property. It's how much my risk tolerance is. So when I get coaching students, I have to figure out their risk tolerances, their goals, their, financial position, and all these different things. I have to understand where they are at. And so when I'm looking at an LLC, I don't look one property, one LLC. If you have a house that's $150,000, that's a lot of paperwork for one LLC. For me, I look at it as equity. How much equity am I willing to lose if I got sued? So usually, let's say it's about 3 or 4 properties, 500 grand that in LLC, and then a new LLC every single time I create a new one, because I now have too much equity in this one LLC, then I move it over, or the next ones I buy with a new LLC.
One thing I think we have to watch out for, and I've heard of this with somebody that was newer, is they bought a property under the name, then transferred it in, and the loan got called. So
You've
you
heard
want
I've known so many investors, and I've never heard of anything happening
transferring.
like
Yeah,
that
it was,
ever.
loan was under his name, and then he transferred into, yeah. So you got to be careful. You got
Did he
to
stop
really.
making payments? Because that's, I mean, how do they know?
I don't know. I don't know how
Wouldn't
they
the bank
figured it
just
out.
say put it back in your primary name?
I think that was what he ended up doing is went back and put it in his own name. He goes, I had no idea I couldn't transfer that. I go, yeah, you're giving it to another person. And it's our loan that people don't
Totally.
realize an LLC is just like another person.
Hmm.
And so you transferred that into somebody else's name and so they weren't happy with that. So you got to be
Well, they
careful.
have the option to the due on sell clause, but if you just banks just want the cash. That's
Yeah.
literally what it is. They
Yeah.
want the mortgage payments.
And that's one thing I think as a new investor, it used to be so intimidating to get these letters from the bank about, hey, we're going to inspect your property. You're like, oh my God, you'd freak out. Now you're like, okay, this is just a process that we go through. It took a while.
100%.
How are you guys dealing with the insurance situation right now? Or
Oh
maybe
my goodness.
yes,
Well, shopping. That's really what it
lots of
comes down
shopping.
to.
Yeah.
It's shopping around. Now, I will say, honestly, insurance, it feels like a scam because whenever you pay for it, you pay for it, you pay for it, and then when you need it, oh, this isn't covered. Oh, that's not
Yeah.
covered. But at the same time, it's a necessary, I would say, evil, a necessary evil that you
Yeah.
kind of have to have. But at the same time, honestly, I shop around every year. I go back and look for new insurance. Oh, one quick thing: 355 unit apartment complex near Nashville that we bought. We had the insurance coverage. My partners already had the insurance, another company they worked with. I got connected with another commercial insurance broker and they got insurance. We're saving $10,000 a month
Mm,
because we have this new insurance, and the mortgage company verified that the insurance is completely written properly and all that sort of stuff. So that's $120,000 a year extra in our pocket. So I shop around.
that's you want to. You don't take the first bid, that's for sure, especially now. Well, I'm in California, so I might be a little sensitive to that subject.
Or
Live about a
Florida,
mile
one of
from
the
the
two.
fires,
Yep. Yep.
so your how do you evaluate and this is something I think somebody new is really going to want to understand is how do you evaluate a potential investment in single family and in the multifamily?
For me, it starts with cash flow. Actually, let me take one quick step back. There are six ways, and your audience knows this, but I'm going to quickly walk through it. There's six ways you make money when you buy one property. Number one, cash flow, which means your rents are more than your expenses. So you make money that way. You have equity capture. So when you buy the property, you buy it for less than it's worth. We're real estate investors. We don't pay top dollar. We don't pay over market value. We pay under. In fact, the 355 unit apartment complex, we bought it like 50 cents on the dollar because it was a distressed seller. This one we're buying in Chattanooga, 375 unit apartment complex, we're closing at the end of this month, that they were also distressed. They just want to sell the property like 60 cents on the dollar. So that's another one. You make sure you capture equity. Another one is forced appreciation. Like value add. Can you make it worth more by putting money into it and it will be worth more than the money put in? Another one is market appreciation. It's proven every 15 or so years, the real estate market doubles. And so that is another great thing. Remember, it's time in the market. One quick thing I'll say is I love this parable or proverb. When's the best time to plant a tree? Well, it was 20 years ago. The next best time is literally today. Same thing with real estate investing. You don't want anybody. So if you're listening to this, I don't want you to be thinking, man, I was listening to Joe's podcast, 20 years ago. I really, really wish I would have started investing then. No, you don't want to be thinking that. You want to be thinking, I'm so glad 20 years ago when I was listening to Joe's podcast, I started investing. I bought my first property or, it started growing from there. One quick last one or two last ones. Tax benefits. Oh my goodness, I make so much money, but I need to buy more properties because I get more depreciation, which saves money from taxes. So the government forces me to buy more real estate, which makes me more money, which stops me from paying taxes. The last one, mortgage buy down. When I buy the property, put a down payment down for a single family home. I mean, we put as little as 5 to maybe 10% at most. And then the tenants pay for that and the mortgage, the interest and the mortgage. But when you look at all the benefits of all these six different ways that you make money, let alone so many other benefits, on top of this, what I look at is what I look for a criteria for any property that I buy. Is it going to fit those? Like if I'm not capturing equity, it's like, why would I buy the property? I don't want to do that. If I'm not making cash flow, I'm not going to buy the property. I'm not going to, because it's not going to make me money because it's a business. I need to make sure I'm making money. So I try to make sure I can value add. I'm obviously, we just know over time markets will go up, all those different things, but I make sure those are all a part of every deal that I buy.
Yeah. The when you find a property, you're going through well, let's walk through your due diligence, especially on the multifamily. Residential is a lot easier, but multifamily, can you walk us through your due diligence, how you approach it?
Well, the first is looking at the property. Well, age is one. Single family homes. I have some single family homes that are like built in the 1900s, but they're still great properties, still doing fine. You have to do a lot more repairs and stuff. But when it comes to multifamily, the older properties, they have the clientele is not as great. So we try to look for, okay, that's number one. Meaning how old is it? So we also look for the clientele. This is even before we even look at the property, walking through the property. What type of clientele are we going to get? Is it because it's built in the 1940s and it's not that kept up? Is that clientele not going to be are they going to have enough money to afford a rent if we, raise up the value and
Yeah.
charge more rent? So we look at the age. We also look at the numbers, like what is it currently rented for? What are the current market rents? It's the same thing with any property. It's how much revenue can we make and generate from this property? What's our mortgage payment going to be? And will we make money and passive income or cash flow from this property? Are we going to capture equity? So in the due diligence process, we look at all those numbers first. But then again, I'm not the expert too. In all these properties, I'm not the expert. I hire lots of other people to do it, from accountants to legal attorneys that are going to do the syndication, that are going to be able to get all the paperwork. But basically, I try to hire as many people as possible. And one quick other thing, multifamily, especially when you're buying a bigger property, it's great to have other experts that are like me. So I have three other partners on these two other properties. We have 750 units now. Three other partners, and they're amazing. My two other partners, they're the ones that sourced the deal. They're the ones that did all the due diligence. I was along for the ride, but they were experts. My bread and butter is residential, 4 units and below. Do that all day. I could do it in my sleep. These guys, they have over 3,000 units together. So when you partner or connect with other great investors and you start seeing the value of connecting and benefiting each other and helping each other out, then it's not all on your back. And so now there's four partners on these properties. We're all raising close to $9 million on this new one that we're getting. So that's what we do in our due diligence. We try to cover all of our bases. Can we command the rents? Can we raise the rents? Meaning, can we get the rent that we can? Can we raise the rents without spending too much money? And can we capture equity as well?
What can the market support for rents? And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. If you have the building that I'm sitting in now, you move it a half mile down. I'm sitting in Brentwood right now. You get down to the other side of Brentwood, it's completely different value on the property. Same property, different value, because the rents are going to be different. I don't. That's something that having that local expertise is so key. So what kind of transactions are happening in the area. What are rents looking like? Are there jobs coming into the area? Are there jobs going out of the area? So you want to have that local expertise. What do you guys do you guys focus on value add for your multifamily?
Not necessarily. Well, a lot of people, let me get to the value add in just a second. So a lot of people say, well, Dustin, this is a bad time to invest in real estate. Interest rates are high, prices are high, and they give all these reasons. There's always reasons why now is not the best time. Oh, it was like this time, and now I look back, and now, to hindsight's always 2020. Well, in my opinion, there's never a bad time to invest in real estate. Remember, it's time in the market. You do not wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and then you wait. So there's never a bad time. But there are bad deals. Even in the best time ever to buy real estate, lowest interest rates, lowest prices, all that sort of stuff, there's still bad deals. We do not buy the bad deals, we buy the good deals. Now, give the example, the 355 unit apartment complex in near Nashville, there wasn't a value add. The property management, the company did a fantastic job. We were able to raise the rents maybe about 5 or 10%, but we got such a good cost basis when we bought the property that we're still making money cash flow and we captured equity and all the good stuff. Now, there wasn't a value add, but it was a great deal. This new property in Chattanooga, this is more of a value add because there's two complexes that comprise this entire 375 units. The first one that was built in 1964, it's a little older than we want, but the newer one is like built in 1985 or something like that. And so the older one, a lot of deferred maintenance. We can raise almost double the amount of rents because they did not fix up the property. This is a big value add because we are actually, I think we're raising close to 3 million just to pay for the fix up of this property and also the newer one. We want to, update it as well. But that is a value add. But each deal, we look at the benefit, the cost benefit of every single deal. Is it a value add? Okay, then make sure it works with the numbers. If it's not a value add, well, it's still, can we buy it low enough to where we can, command the rents and make money and still in 5 years, hopefully exit it or refinance, pay off our investors, and then keep the property for ourselves.
All right. How do you, and that makes sense. We always kind of look for value add. And so we became pretty good at figuring out ways to squeeze a little bit more out of the property. Carports was one thing because we were buying in Texas. There was 300 and almost 400 units, no carports. So we built 25% had carports. We charge extra for those. It was an extra couple $100 a month. It cost us $750 to build each space, and we were renting out for $250 a month. It was just,
oh, I mean, what, 6 months? You're
yeah,
already
we're good.
got.
Yeah, and so and storage is always another good thing. Um, your risk management, where you guys are spread out around the U.S., how do you handle risk management?
Well, what every single week we jump on calls with our property management, with making sure the asset is managed well, and so we're always up to speed on every single. Because when you have lots of like multifamily, you have lots and lots of different moving parts, or meaning units, transition, turnover, all that sort of stuff, repairs. So we're constantly talking with all of our property managers, and we try to find and hire the best property managers, but we stay on top of them. Like we're constantly staying on top of everything they're doing. So that's with the multifamily, with the property manager. Now with a single family home, the asset management, it's you got to hire the best property manager, just like with the multifamily. You have to find and hire the best property manager, but then you have to stay on top of it. One quick thing I'll share. It's much easier with a single family home to stay on top of the asset management because it's very few moving parts, very few. And it's so easy now that my 16-year-old daughter, she takes care of all the property management statements and puts in the numbers, and she lets me know, hey, this is a little off. We should talk to the property manager. So it's much simpler with a single family home. Multifamily or larger apartment complexes, you have to have your finger on it all the time to make sure that every single step that the property manager is doing is what you want them to do.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about earlier. That's a key. That's a big key for everybody. All right, let's move into scaling. You chose to go right across the United States right off the bat. That doesn't happen very often. Typically, somebody starts in an area and gets pretty, works, gets a bunch of properties in one area, then moves on. I want to hear your thoughts on how you're teaching people to scale, please.
Well, scaling is basically a couple things. Well, number one, I've said this over and again, but I'll say it again and again. We build a business. We make sure that business has the systems, procedures, processes, and people in place so that we can then scale because it doesn't rely on us personally, like me, to do any of the work. So that's number one. Build the business. Now, in order to scale, people start realizing actually there's only a couple things that really come down to money to buy the property and the
Yep.
deals. That's the only two things that really boil everything down. Now, managing afterwards, yes. If you don't have that factor accounted for, like how are we going to manage it perpetually? Don't even get in business. Like literally, don't even buy a property unless you know how to make money perpetually afterwards and have you not manage a property. So check. We have to make sure we get the right property manager. Got that. But the two other things, money and deals. So let's say for single family homes, for money, it is actually, I'll say this. If anybody's saying, hey, Dustin, I want to invest in single family homes, but I don't have any money. If you think money's the problem, you just need more options. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong, but I'm telling you, you don't have to go to work for 100 years, or there's being facetious, but like, say 5 years, save up a ton of money and then put a 20% down payment. No, you absolutely don't need to do that. In fact, I have some students putting 5% down on a $100,000 house. That's not much. That's $5,000. So it's not that. And on top of that, I've used creative financing. When I say creative financing, different ways to get money. Like I don't have to get a job to save money, but give you a quick example. I have one student. He's a pastor. His name is Benjamin, pastor up in Sacramento. And pastors don't make any money. And so he was like, Dustin, I know I'm not going to be able to work forever. So I really want to buy a property or start investing. I said, well, let's look at it and start coaching him. He had a house that he bought in 15. So he had some equity. So we got a home equity line of credit on his property, took that home equity line of credit, bought a single family home in Atlanta, Georgia, started cash flowing the property, then refinanced it, pull all the equity, and I think like $20,000 on top of that, tax free. I got to say that it's a tax free loan. Paid off his home equity line of credit. So now he has that access to capital to buy the next property. And he has 20 grand in his pocket to, do whatever he wants with. But the property's cash flowing, even with that mortgage. So when you think of financing, remember that there's two: financing and deals. Financing is not the problem. I know of so many either ways to get financing, from commercial loans, DSCR loans, private money lenders, hard money lenders, signature loans. I've even used credit cards. Kid you not. I literally use credit cards to buy real estate because remember, if you start a business, that candy bar business, if it's only going to cost you 25 cents to borrow 50 cents, then you're out of pocket 75 cents. You sell it for $1, you're still going to make money. I knew my business so well that I knew even with these credit card fees, I'm still going to make more money. Hard money loans, all these different ways. So number one, scaling, you need to have access to capital and you need options. So when I say access to capital, all these different options. A business line of credit is another great way. There's so many. I mean, I could keep going, but that's one, is financing. And financing is not the problem. You just need to know what options are out there and how to find them, which that's what we do. We love showing you how to do it. Number two is deals. How do we get more deals? I'll tell you, like, this is the hack that is going to get you the most deals ever. And it's going to take time. Remember, this is a get wealthy plan. You need to start telling every single person that you are an investor. Every person that you know, like whenever you get asked the question, because I used to reply, because I worked at the local county government doing IT. Somebody would ask me the question, Dustin, what do you do? I said, I work for the county government. I do IT. Well, I'm projecting out to the world. Whenever we answer in that way, we're projecting out the world that our value that we put on ourselves comes from our job. Well, no, I realize my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God and from myself and from my family. So right then and there, after I realized this, I decided I'm going to tell every single person I'm an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So I just kept buying property after property, and more people that knew me as an investor, the more deals I got, the more people that wanted to invest in my deals, the more people that wanted to rent my properties. Now, every single nobody really remembers me as somebody doing IT at all, because the last at least 10 years I've been telling every single person I'm an investor, and this is how deals come to me automatically. Remember, finances, that's not a problem. Deals, that should not be a problem, because this is the hack. When everybody knows that you're an investor, everybody's going to be bringing you deals. So that's how we scale, is get over these hurdles. One quick last thing I'll say: if you're an investor, remember, you need to be a business owner. Business owners are problem solvers. Let's say you have a problem of you don't have the money. Well, we got to solve that problem. We figure that out. Same thing, you don't have a deal. Well, we got to solve that problem. You can't manage it. Well, we got to solve that problem. So when you're a business owner, you're a problem solver.
Do you ever use seller financing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As often as I can. Though I mean, those are great. It takes a little more work to get in there. You have to figure out what the seller wants. Meaning you
Right.
can't just say, "Hey, seller, you're looking to sell. Have you ever thought of seller financing?" You're going to run them away. Most people never hear about that stuff. You got to help them, educate them by asking questions, seeing what they want out of the deal, and then eventually work your way into it. But yes, seller financing subject to is another one, especially for residential, subject to the current loan that's on place. Let's say they have a 3% interest, then
Yeah.
buy that property, take over the mortgage payments, put the property in your name, and then literally tell the bank, hey, I'm taking over. Anyway, it's called subject to. But yes, we do all that sort of stuff.
How do you typically structure a seller financing deal? You just sit and have a conversation and pound it out until you come to terms?
Every single
Different.
transaction, well, every single deal, yes, but every single thing that you do in real estate is all negotiable. Everything, even your title fees, talk to them, negotiate, talk to them and say, hey, how do I get this lower?
People don't even think about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every single time you have a term or money coming out of your pocket, like this is the terms, you negotiate. Every time money comes out of your pocket, you negotiate. I love negotiating. In fact, that's how we get, like, my partners and I, when with the apartment complexes, we love negotiating. And so that's how we get it so low. Now, when you're looking at your properties and negotiating, what happens is when you're negotiating with the seller, you have to figure out what they want, and then you try to reach them where they're at. So what, like I said, anything in this business, real estate, is all about negotiating and helping each other out. I don't think ever it should be a win-lose situation. You need to figure out what the seller wants. And to get the seller financing, we figure out what they want, and then we come to an agreement on terms by negotiating back and forth. Let's say they want seller, they're okay. And they say, yes, I understand now. Seller financing, basically, I'm the bank, and I understand that now. Why don't I do that? You say, okay, great. Well, let's talk about terms, how long, and balloon payment, and all that sort of stuff. But you really just sit down, talk to the seller, help them get what they want so that they win. And then if you can win at the same time, then you get that deal done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a process, but it can be a great way to go. Um, let's talk about your financing. Obviously, you've built relationships up over time, but how did you start your financing relationships? You start cold calling brokers or brokers?
Great question. And yes. And it first started because I didn't know what I was doing. I was calling Chase Bank and Bank of America, which I never call anymore at
Yeah.
all. They're not my friends. They just, buy a home, live in it, and all that. So, but yes, it really comes down to relationships.
Yeah.
It all comes down to relationships. In fact, I'll say this one quick thing: real estate's not about property, business is not about products, and life's not about experiences. Real estate is about people, business is about people, and life is about people. When you make everything that you do about people, everything gets better and better. And so when I look for financing, in fact, with my students, I've worked out so many people that I currently work with that give all my students, say, hey, I've already done my due diligence. I work with this company. You can work with them too, but I'll give a but. You have to do your own due diligence. Just because they work well for me doesn't mean they're going to work well for you. I've just done my homework and I'm going to give these to you. But when it comes to mortgages and financing and private money, hard money, you name it, it's all about relationships. I'll be completely straightforward. If I don't get along well with somebody, like personalities clash, like it's a hard relationship, it's like, you know what? We don't have to do business together. I want easy relationships where it's like, yeah, this is great. I could talk with this person and, maybe go hang out sometime if we really, really cared about it. But I want to work with people that I enjoy working around. And there's so much business to go around. So, yes, relationships, you got to talk to a lot of people and figure out who's going to be best for your business.
All great advice. Thank you, Dustin. What's next for you?
What's next for me, man? Master passive income and my investing, they go hand in hand. In fact, master passive income came out of my real estate investing. And so continually invest in more real estate. Like I said, we're closing, hopefully, Lord willing, pretty soon on this large 375 unit apartment complex in Chattanooga. But then I'm also buying single family homes, residential, just keep growing from there. But then I'm on a mission to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. And oh, I didn't ask this. Would you mind if I shared just a free course that I give to I'll give to
Absolutely. We'll
everybody in
put a
your
link
audience?
down below.
Awesome. I want to show you how everything I do from building the business, scaling it to quit your job or become financially independent. So if you text the word rental, RENTAL to 33777. Rental to 33777, or you can go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word. And I will literally give you, I've had so many people invest just from getting this course and start investing. But then also, like my podcast, just listen to that, but Master Passive Income podcast. But in general, it's all now for me. How do I serve more people? How do I help more people to invest in real estate? Because I've realized the more people that I serve, help them to make money, the more money I make. So it's just a win-win. Remember, I think life in abundance. Everybody should be a win-win-win. Nobody should lose. If you do it right, it should be a win-win and everybody walks away happy.
Dustin, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate having me.
You bet. And for those of you watching, make sure you tune back in to see Dustin. I'm going to put the link to everything he just offered down below. Give us a like. If you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.